Hello there, and welcome to Star Wars Music Minute, where we celebrate the music and sound of Star Wars 5 cinematic minutes at a time. I'm Chrysanthi Tan, you can call me Xanthi, and today's episode is based on minutes 136 through 140 of Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi. In this set of minutes, Luke Skywalker and Kylo Ren have their final face-off. Rey uses the Force to live heavy rocks that are obstructing the path of the Resistance. And, well, Luke says, "See you later." And we see him beginning to collapse on Octo on a rock. Today, I am joined by Darth Choco, whom I am a fan of. And we're gonna talk through the music and sound and themes of this really, really hefty set of minutes. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited because I love this film. I love the music. I love music in general, and I am lucky because this is a powerful scene.
Yeah, it's a very powerful scene. And as I was telling Choco before we started, like I studied, before recording this, but watching it too many times, like I was just like, I cried a little bit. So I had to sort of limit my exposure to the scene. And the music is really doing so much here too. Like we get actually exposed music rather than just underscore. So that's nice.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, there's just when you have such like light and dark, characters facing off of each other, and you have the music that is riffing off of both of them, and it's switching back and forth with this like raising intensity. Yeah, it's beautiful.
That's actually a good point and a good entry point to this. The music that we get is very it sonically seems like it is really fitting with cinematographically with what the cinematography is doing, and sort of going between Kylo and Luke, and sort of the face off, the shots, the wide shots, and then the really extreme close-ups. And then music is also, we're hearing both light side and dark side themes. We're hearing both Kylo, and we're hearing lots of the Force theme, and we're hearing this new Rey stuff with her lifting the rocks. We're really kind of getting a big milieu of it here.
Yeah, it's amazing. John Williams is a mastermind, and I feel like he doesn't get enough credit for how much of a heavy lifter he's been with Star Wars.
That's very true. That's very true. When I get into the prequels the prequel seasons, we'll have a lot more to talk about that. But here at the beginning of the scene, or I would say like about 15 seconds in, we start to get like the close-ups, and it's the wide shot, sort of like a Western, and we see Kylo Ren like twisting his foot in the bloody snow. And right off the bat, like we hear Kylo's and Luke's lightsabers, and they sound so different.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that juxtaposition is really intense, and it showcases one, like just how distinct the different lightsabers can sound, especially Kylo's, which is really like a standout, really raw lightsaber. And Luke's is just so much more focused.
Yeah, it kind of takes me back to Empire Strikes Back, where Luke asks Yoda, how will I know the good from the bad? And Yoda tells him, when you are calm, at peace, passive. And that's the Luke that we're seeing here. Like the sound from his saber is just as pure, whereas you have the complete like chaos of Kylo Ren, which is his personality. You can see, we have the salt from the battle like sparking and stuff off of his lightsaber blade, and yeah, it's symbolic of so many different things, but having Luke come back in this like serene form, like a true Jedi should, is like hit me really hard.
Oh, that's so true. That's a good recall to Empire Strikes Back, because here Luke is also using like the really, passive form, the really centered, he's using like form 3, it seems, here in this battle, where he's mostly on self-defense. and not like aggressively attacking the other person. Like here we, I mean, just the juxtaposition between these two characters and their fighting styles and just where they are mentally is astounding. And I actually think through the music, I think the music supports that. So something that I really love, like this is the track on the soundtrack that is called The Last Jedi. So that's mostly what's playing throughout this scene. And when Luke is saying like amazing, every word of what you said was wrong, that whole thing, we start to hear the Force theme, and he continues his speech like the rebellion is reborn today, the war is just beginning, and I will not be the last Jedi. And as he's saying like just those few sentences, I'll play it, but like we get the Force theme, and it is rapidly modulating upward. And so you'll hear just like melodically it climbs. So let me just. So basically, we're starting in D minor. And then it goes to E flat. So we're just doing like a tiny step up. Another half step up to E minor. And then we go to G minor. And then we're in A minor. Like it just keeps climbing up. And it just happens. It happens so elegantly and so quickly. It's really delightful, and it's really visceral when it happens on screen, because in addition to melodically it's climbing, harmonically it's climbing, it's also getting faster. So there's like all these signs that are like it's ramping up, and ending with Luke's "and I will not be the last Jedi." It's just like there's the line on the platter.
That's so beautiful, and you're amazingly talented. I wish I'm a musician, but not on your level. Um, but yeah, just like you said, and how all of these, it's just building towards a hope, like building towards a new hope, and as it's climbing, we're seeing the resolutions of all of the different characters' stories coming to fruition at the same time, but we don't get an actual resolution on any of those situations as it's cycling through the scenes. And so it's just like this, and that's why it always starts on that, somber, minor tone, even as it's rising. And so it's like this entire movie, things start out bad and they get worse and worse and worse. And this is like plateaued climbing out of that darkness towards, a light that we're going to burst into. And that's kind of like what we're seeing in this whole scene, because it's going back and forth between Luke and Kylo Ren's themes. Because at this point, you're not supposed to. Obviously, we know the good guys are going to end up winning, but you don't know how these passes back and forth are going to resolve. Same with the melody.
Yeah, that's so beautifully said, because like as it's ramping up and we're seeing like tiny hints of all these different journeys, and what I sort of get from it is like, but we're still trying, we're still one step forward, we're still moving, we're still striving. Like I will not be the last one, there's going to be one after me, and then like one after, and then one after. And just even though there seems like there's not much to hope for, like just one tiny step in front of the next is, you keep trying. You keep what does Jin say? I don't know. Rebellions are built on hope. But like you just keep striving. And you're right, there is really no resolution. And actually what happens at the end of that is literally it ends on something called a deceptive cadence. it cuts immediately to Rey lifting the rocks. So it literally rises there and to Rey lifting the rocks, and the Force theme cuts out, and we get this new like slowed down, sort of frozen in time, wordless choir. This beautiful, again, another ascending melody, while Rey is lifting the rocks, and it's sort of like come full circle. She started her Force training with her hand on a rock, and now she is lifting rocks to make space for the Resistance to continue their work.
Whew. No, that's it's because you hit me with a bunch of things. Because stepping up is like just like steps, and that's how you get through failure
Like
is
Jedi
one
steps.
one step at a time. And I love that. And plus, like you said, leaving off on that deceptive cadence where this is Ray's. She comes to this island expecting the legend of Luke Skywalker, but she gets the man, and he basically explains to her like behind every legend is a person. Like
Ooh.
we often forget, it doesn't matter like where you are, behind every legend is an actual person that has failures and doubts and all this stuff. And it's not until this entire time Ray is kind of like this character where um I hope this isn't too much of a tangent, but she's this scavenger, right? So she's finding these lost and broken things and kind of repairing them and seeing the value in them. She herself is one of these lost and broken things, but she hasn't seen the value in herself yet. So as she's going through the journey, she's expecting, okay, Luke, you're the one that needs to come back and fix this. And it's not him, at least not at this point in time. Like, fine, then Kylo Ren, you're the person that has the power to fix this. And that building up and saying, Luke is saying that the Resistance is reborn today, um, and that I'm not the Last Jedi, and then you end on that point, and this is her first step as a Force user, cementing her kind of legacy in here, or starting down that journey, accepting that she is the one that's going to have to step up. Yeah, that's beautiful.
It it's so, and I just think also about the imagery of like Octo and like all of those like hundreds of steps leading up, and
Mm-hmm.
all those shots of, I mean, it's it's really like it's a great collaboration, great collaborative effort here. I think Ryan Johnson did an amazing job with also the shot. This like the scenery of this scene is so beautiful and sparse, but like intimate. Like it's so big, and they look so small in scale, Kylo and Luke, in comparison to like you see the walkers behind, like everything.
Mm-hmm.
I think that shot, like when I first saw this in theaters, I think I was a little bit stunned by like how big all those things were, how small they were. Um, oh,
Yeah, I mean, especially they land, there's a big giant door, and then they have these big enormous walkers, and all of it kind of resolves down to this little intimate moment between two people that have known each other for all of Ben's life. Um and I always love playing with scale. I think Star Wars has always done a really good job of that. Of it makes me think of, again, Empire Strikes Back, of Luke's duel with Vader, where each arena they fight in gets smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller until there's no place for anyone to run. This kind of has that feel of um, the First Order is this enormous, imposing fleet, but this battle just kind of comes down to this little singular point, and that's what matters.
yeah, all of that. And when Ray is lifting the rocks, that to me seems more than anything like a test to herself. Like, can I really do this? She's putting her training to the test.
Yeah, it's this has to. I don't even think of it as can I do it. It's this has to be done.
Yes, yes, yes.
This is what we have to do
Well,
right
that's the thing
now.
with the Jedi, right? Like when they like take steps up with their powers, and when they are quote unquote putting things to the test, it's always like actually in a real circumstance. So it's not really
Yeah,
a test. It's more like just you have to step up now, and you're either going to do it or not. Um, um,
which do
yeah,
or do not.
exactly, exactly. Now I get you, Yoda. Um, so here, the wordless choir again, it's like very beautiful, and choir tends to symbolize. I mean, not symbolize, but it is often used when there's big moments of someone stepping up, or like loss, or um, something. I don't want to say mystical, but something like a little bit otherworldly. Like she's
Yeah,
calling in on something beyond herself here.
it has that ethereal like feel to it.
Yes. And now here, I think okay, the harmony here, like the way that wordless choir Ray lifting rocks thing ends, is so striking to me. And I was trying to find like supercuts of all the main characters dying in Star Wars, but I couldn't really do that. But it
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 sounds like a sad project.
it does. But I suddenly wanted to like needed to hear the music on all of those parts because there's something. Uh, it ends on a really final sounding chord. It ends on something that sounds so like. Oh, let me play it. So, oh, shit, let me do that. Okay. So, I guess pay attention to first how, just like the Force theme before when it was modulating upwards, here the voices are getting progressively higher as well. And then here. That final chord that it ends on, like that final cadence, so which encompasses the last two chords, is really it's really rare in Star Wars for that to occur. John Williams really reserves that specific cadence, which is a minor, perfect, authentic cadence, but it's really reserved for big, big moments, and it actually reminds me of like a very Baroque voicing. Like I don't know if you can sort of hear the difference between. I mean, stop me, but like, did you hear that there was something unusual there?
uh, I mean, during that portion of it, yes, I there's no way I could give you all of the same terminology, but um, we hear this power, the like ethereal nature of what she is doing, but it kind of like the choir slowly drops out a little bit, and those um when we get to that end moment, like you're saying, and I believe that's right when Finn and Rey embrace each other, and it's uh, so the choir has dropped out, so they're pulling out from the kind of feeling the force nature of it, because at that point she's dropped the boulders, but this is the resolution because our two main characters on this side haven't seen each other in the entire film
Yeah,
at all.
yeah,
um, and so this is it's a mini resolution for that portion, but we're still heading into we're still not done yet. So
oh yeah,
that's kind of how
absolutely,
I feel about it.
absolutely.
And then the way the music drops out, and then you get the wind. It's beautiful. But sorry, continue.
No, yeah, but the music does come to a like temporary pause there. Um, it sounds sort of to me like just a sigh of exhaustion, like just after this big moment of exertion on behalf of Ray, it's sort of just like a little bit of a collapse. Um, Just sounds like that could be the end of the recital right there, but it's not,
Yeah.
obviously. Um, so yeah, that's just a very, it's just a view. It's a very striking, it's a very striking choice on behalf of John Williams there.
No, I like that you point that out though. It's kind of like it's especially after what we just talked about of this kind of climbing out of this hole musically, and that's like the rest you get at the top of your climb, where you get to actually just like stop and breathe for a second, which is what our characters finally get to do.
And here with both Rey and Luke, we are seeing like we are reminded that using the Force in like a big way is draining. Like it is highly taxing on your body, and we see it in various other books and movies too. And it just sort of, of course, like they're not like superheroes. They're using the Force, and it does take a little bit out of them. And we see also like in the next film, I guess, when Rey starts to like force heal other creatures, that takes a toll. Like nothing is
Mm-hmm.
just like a power with no consequence. And so actually that cadence to me sounds like the type of cadence that would be at the end of a funeral march, or like at the end of something like that. I actually went back to try to check if we could hear it like during Padme or during some other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And until I like reviewed these minutes, I thought for a second that that was maybe when Luke was collapsing, but it wasn't. It was after just Rey lifted the rocks. But then, of course, in a way, it sort of telegraphs what is going to happen with Luke when he does exert himself with the Force. That is going to be his final. That will be his
Yeah.
final stand. So, yeah, I get chills there.
I love it. So I could just listen to you talk all day.
So then Kylo rams Luke with his lightsaber blade.
Yeah, I mean, but like I said before, though, right before there, the music drops out, and then we hear the wind kind of rustling as they're standing there facing each other. Um, and there's nothing besides the crackling of the lightsaber and the wind, and that's when Kylo Ren is yelling at him like, I'll end her, and like in all of this stuff, and then that's when it starts to pick back up, and Luke replies to him.
What do you think Kylo is feeling at this moment?
He's just not. He's not feeling. I mean, he's feeling everything. He's thinking nothing, and he's just kind of a rabid animal at this moment in time. He can see nothing but um, just being driven by this thought of, I guess, revenge. Um, but yeah, he's just a ball of everything. It feels like.
Kylo is such a dangerously charged character to me, and like I have this bad habit, maybe not bad habit, but I always worry about like villains' mental health, and like how Kylo is doing right now. Obviously, not great, not super great, um, but he's someone who's like the dark side people. It doesn't seem like they always have a firm ideology in place, and they're driven by things that are mercurial. Like Kylo, sort of, he doesn't know what else. Like this is he. I bet he feels like this is his only choice. Like he has to do this. Why? Because it is his destiny, and because he was wronged, and because and because power, I guess, and because what else is he going to do? It's too late for him. Like
Mm-hmm.
he's backed into a corner, and his moment here, his moments throughout the whole movie are just met with resistance from everyone. Like after he fights with Rey against the Praetorian guards, like that could have been his moment to have her join him, and she's rejects him. Now here with Luke, like Luke is totally owning him, and he's just like back to this little kid that he doesn't want to be. And even though he's giving like maximum effort, it seems, trying every angle, trying everything, he's still not coming out on top.
Yeah.
Poor
Yeah, I
Kylo.
love how dynamic their passes are back and forth without ever they're making contact or anything. It's yeah. There's just a lot of beauty here, um, and again, he's such a torn character that it's that's what makes him so fascinating. And he can't. He says to let the past die, but the entire time he's only focused on the past. He's only focused on what's behind him, and it's that struggle, that's just raging inside of him. That's his instability.
Yeah, whenever he says "let the past die," it is like you're talking to yourself, dude. Like I don't think other people have the problem with it that you do, but okay. It's such a funny line that he keeps repeating. So here he is. He says what? He says, "I'll destroy her. I'll destroy her and you and all of it." He's very also into saying like all of it. Um, and then Luke says, "No, strike me down in anger, and I will always be with you, just like your father." Ugh, ouch. And then this is when he rams Luke's torso with the lightsaber, and it just goes right through him.
Yeah. I also love, this is kind of a side point, but earlier in the film when you see Rey training on with the lightsaber, she pulls it out and starts to with the rock where she's testing her range and stuff like that. Um, she actually does all of the moves that Kylo Ren does in this fight.
Oh, wait,
And
say more.
so, I mean, if you remember that scene,
Yeah.
she holds the lightsaber out forward, just like Kylo Ren does, and then she immediately drops it into a reverse grip and does the overhand and then the cross and all this stuff. And
That's so true. Yeah.
they're like mimicking the same moves, and so Kylo Ren actually swinging through Luke is her when she actually cleaves the rock, and it's I don't know, it just interesting because we don't know exactly what all she got from their connection through the dyad, but I just thought that was just a really cool note.
Yeah, as you say that, I can imagine it blow by blow, but I never made that connection before. That's amazing. Okay. That's very cool. Very cool. I'm surprised no one's ever like mentioned that to me before, or noticed it. Um, has Ryan Johnson like mentioned any bigger intention behind that or just awareness? I'm sure he's aware of it, obviously.
I'm sure he's aware of it. None of that was mentioned. Not when I mean, as soon as these movies come out, like one of the very first things I do is watch it with director's commentary. So he doesn't
Mhm.
mention it in there, but it's just something I thought was cool.
Yeah, that is super cool. Um, I wonder if wait, what is Luke? Is Kylo affecting anything on Octo at this point?
I mean, Kylo Ren is, yeah. Whenever you can see the bits of the
That's right.
salt sparking on his lightsaber, and he's like been moving the sand aside, on the ground. And I love how when he does the big swipe, how like because he goes straight through Luke and he slides for a good period of distance. Like he was giving that. I mean,
His
that was
all,
absolutely
maximum
maximum
effort.
effort.
Yes.
But like just how it slides and leaves the red is, I don't know. It's just such a cool visual. I like that a lot.
And of course, there we get his like super ragey theme. We get
Yeah.
and after that, we get this like really epic. Oh no, I used that word. I've been trying not to use the word I've been trying to retire that word. Okay. Because I think it's so non-specific. Then we get this like furious escalating um arpeggiated thing in the strings where it's like do 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 do. That was a not terrible representation, but it's very plotting and it's very it's like a very consistent rhythm that is sort of like emphasizes the futility of Kylo's efforts here. It's like so steady. It's like, well, Luke's got this. Do 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 do. Like,
Yeah.
too bad.
No, I can get it.
Thank you, thank you.
Because I certainly can't do it either. But um, and also when he screams in and charges too, we also get a brief like hint at another choir moment as well as
Yes,
he's sliding. Um, and I mean, first of all, I love Kylo Ren's theme so much, and it's like it's vaguely reminiscent of at the end of Revenge of the Sith when Anakin is like on Mustafar after having murdered all the separatists, and he's like just looking out over the lava. The music there just kind of gives me the same feeling. It was just expanded
mm.
on this. Um, I mean, I'm probably super wrong there. If you can recall that theme, I'd love to hear your
When you
thoughts
say
out.
you
But
love Kylo Ren's theme, do you mean the one that I just played? Because he has like a few.
he does have a few, but the main progression of the dun dun dun
Yeah,
dun dun, and how that leads into you know whenever you hear that, stuff's about to go down, and then you get the dun, 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 like
absolutely. And you're right.
yeah
The choir does come in there. It sort of lends an even more tragic, grand feeling to this. And also, the violins are tremoloing, so they're like trembling their bows really, really fast and really, really high. So that creates like it kind of adds to me the same thing that the choir is, where it's just like, I don't know how else to describe it, but the tremolo thing that is happening there is, I mean, the arpeggio thing is the that thing, right? Where it's like it's very steady, even though the like bass notes are changing. Um, and that also escalates in a way to Kylo's like rageful when he yells no, or it's more like
yeah.
no. We get this like, oh, please.
I was just gonna say also. So and after he swipes, and then the music starts doing that. The climbing. Again, those ascending notes, and Kylo Ren walks up and then sticks his lightsaber in, and then you just hear that lone horn just like kind of rise up above the rest, and I it just makes me think of the Luke's original theme when he's looking at the binary sunset, and then you hear the horn kind of rising up in the same way, and um, it feels like in that scene where Luke is young, looking out over this the sunset
Hmm.
or sunrise, sorry, sunset in that scene. It's like has this hope, this like motivation that he can do anything, and then like he stabs into him here, and then you hear that horn kind of pick up again, which is like feels the same way of like, yeah, no, Luke's built different.
Oh yeah. Can you describe the horn thing a little bit more? Was it reminiscent because of the instrumentation? Because like the horn is just is the instrument used in the binary sunset?
Mostly just because of the same being the same instrument that really does the standout portion here.
So is the horn sustaining here? I just can't remember. Is the horn sustaining here?
Yeah, it sustains for just a couple measures and then drops back down even while the lightsaber is still in him.
And this is before the right?
Yes,
Okay,
before
yeah.
that part.
Yeah. It always sounds weird when I play things up high, but it's more like
No, I'm just like, how does she just do that?
um and there it's more futility. Um, Something about Kylo's theme that I think really characterizes it is, well, one, how short it is and how it kind of goes nowhere. And it's not as like long or fully developed as, say, Ray's. It's really
Hmm.
just this petulant loop of, I think I'm evil. Like a motto that, like, it's more like his slogan. Like Kylo has this evil, like a few tapes in his head that are just like, um, he's trying to be a villain. He's sort of not very
Interesting.
good at it sometimes. Like he wavers a lot more than any other like dark side character that we see. I mean, Anakin excluded, but I think but once Anakin is but in the films we don't see like Darth Vader questioning. Um but Kylo's themes are just, yeah, they're just like mottos. And then here when we have this repeated sort of chromatic, it literally goes nowhere. It's like these three notes are so smashed together. It's not like, I don't know, any other theme that spans more octaves and spans a lot more notes. It's like this very cramped, like, damn it, best it
That's
again.
that's fascinating. I like that.
What do you think of okay, when what do you think Kylo thinks is happening when his lightsaber is going through Luke?
Well, it's interesting because earlier in the film, as soon as because he is a highly intelligent person and a tactician, like he knows stuff. He is not dumb. And as soon as Ray appears to him early in the film, first thing he says is, "You will bring Luke Skywalker to me," and he's like, "Oh yeah, she's built different. That's not that's not going to work." So then he stops, but he's immediately trying to figure out like the hell is happening, and he's like, how is this working? And he's trying to get information. He's like, I can see you, but I can't see any of your surroundings. Can you see mine? And then he's like, you couldn't be doing this. The effort would kill you. Like as soon as this happens, he's like, this is weird. Um, but we get this later on in the film, and he's not that guy. Not right now. That's one of the reasons why. I mean, Luke shows up, and he looks exactly like he looked in the hut when this happened. Like Luke didn't run and get a fresh cut or anything like that. Plus, Luke is wielding the lightsaber that was just destroyed, right there. Now, we don't know exactly what Kylo Ren remembers, if he remembers it being destroyed or knows what happened to it. He just something happened and he was unconscious. And when he woke up, it was gone. But I think it's more that he is so rage focused and living in his past at this moment that he can't see it. And that's exactly how Luke appears to him, as the specter from his past. And he can't see anything else that's going on. He can't think about anything else that's going on. And is so confident in his own ability that by the time he stands there and sticks the sword through him, he's like, oh, damn, I got played. I got played hard, man.
Like, what now? Okay, yeah, you had a lot of good points there. One is, you're right. Kylo Ren is a tactician, and he does display throughout the entire movie um, sort of his reasoning and the different angles that he's trying. Like that is something he's very good at. Is things don't work, and so he tries something else, and he tries to deduce what is going on, and tries to outsmart like everything that's happening. And just as we were talking at the beginning of this, sort of with the Jedi, they're kind of backed into a wall too. Like they're trying to make steps forward, but they're just very tiny. They're making tiny baby steps. Well, Kylo is like, meanwhile, he is trying. He's like on a hamster wheel, though. He's like not moving forward, but not for lack of effort. And his effort is really like, I don't know. At the end of this scene, he's like broken. He's like, what could it possibly be now? Like I thought I figured how, like just how is Kylo's line of thought here in a nutshell. How? How is this possible? I do think
Yeah.
when he says the effort would kill you, that makes me think that he does believe this is possible, but is just like, but Luke wouldn't do that. Wait. So he's not like totally disbelieving. He's just like, I didn't expect you to pull this card of this like projection.
Ah, that's interesting. Yeah, because I could definitely see it both ways.
Yeah. Well, in the Jedi Path book, I don't know if you read that, but they do talk about like the doppelganger thing.
Hmm.
And I mean, who's to say if they were like drawing from that material at all? But
Oh, they were.
okay,
Yeah.
great. So,
Rand Johnson, like someone's like that, you can't do that, and Rand Johnson sent a picture of that page of the
oh,
book.
perfect. Okay. Well, then, for those who don't know, great. So, in the Jedi Path book, they do talk about this technique that Luke is using, basically the ability to create a doppelganger of yourself. And, it's like short term, but basically, I think, isn't one of the parameters like that you do die after making this effort?
And I can't remember.
Something like
Oh,
that.
so because the Jedi Path book is, it pulls from Legends as well, and it gets, things get wild out there.
That
So
is true.
um I don't recall exactly.
This is true. But okay. But in any case, it seems that Kylo at least knows that this is a thing that potentially could happen, or maybe he's heard of other Jedis who have done this, but probably was not thinking that Luke himself would do this, especially knowing that there are such large consequences, whether it's you
Mhm.
die or whether it's like just the effort would kill you, like just that it's really, really freaking hard, um, and takes a lot of life out of you. I guess he just feels like, I think this is the moment where he knows that Luke has been distracting him and he fell for it. And also, Luke cared enough about something else, this other cause that again that wasn't Kylo, um, to sacrifice
Mhm.
himself like this. That's like gotta hurt double or something.
Yeah, I mean, and that's why, like, ultimately, this trilogy, there's big misnomer out there that's like, oh, that it has no point, there's no through line or anything. And you're like, no, the through line is like, is legacy versus blood. And you know he is the rightful inheritor of all of this stuff, and that's one of the
Kylo.
things that he's, yeah, Kyler is. That's one of the things that he's rebelling against, is because he has all these legacies tossed on him of being, a Skywalker, and people are only seeing him for this. His namesake Ben was from Obi-Wan Kenobi, and he's like, you know I'm named after this great Jedi that I don't even know. I've never met him. um he's the inheritor of all of this stuff. When he first sees the lightsaber in The Force Awakens, he's like, that belongs to me. Well, Luke chose her and said she's going to carry on the Jedi. And that's, yeah, I think that's also part of why he feels so lost. Like, he feels abandoned, but it was his own actions that led there.
Okay, so now I'm reading the scene even more differently. Wherein like it's the death cadence that I mentioned before after Rey lifts the rocks. It's sort of like a lot of things that happen at the end of The Last Jedi are more so putting a nail in Kylo Ren's coffin, like to his family. Like he's really the most estranged person at the end of this. And even though they keep, like, I feel like Han and Leia and Rey and even Luke, like they each make an effort to be like, Kylo, do you really mean that? Like, come on. And Rey even calls him Ben all the time. Like, Ben, like, they give him chances and he rejects all of them. And with each one, it's like, all right, we like really don't want to take action against you, Ben.
Yeah.
But like, you just are, what more can we do? And so we get it with like Luke here, who's just, screw it, I'll play with I'll mess with my nephew to help the resistance because that's where my values align. And Rey, of course, like he tries so hard during this movie and really believes in him, and she gives him like a very fair chance, and she's like, no. And even Leia, right before this, is like, I know my son is lost. And to me, that's like the biggest one because Luke's like, they have the talk, and Luke's like, you know what I have to do. And Leia just,
I'm not here to save him.
ugh. And so they all are they've all cut him off by the end of this. And that's, oh, yeah.
Wow, I didn't even think of it like that. But you're absolutely right, and also, I mean, at the end of the film, the door closing on the Falcon was supposed to signify, Rey's like cutting off that friendship that they had.
Yep.
So, and in that moment, he's truly alone. Like you got what you wanted. How does it feel? Play stupid games, get stupid prizes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, but at the same token, I also love Luke's role in all of this and the scene because, um, you know, I I did hear a lot of backlash. Like Luke would never think of killing his nephew, and you're right. He doesn't want to kill Ben, and it reminds me of once again Empire Strikes Back, where Luke goes into for his test the first time in the dark side cave, and
Mm-hmm.
he's told, your weapon, you will not need it, and then he's like, screw you, Yoda, and he brings
Take
it
it anyway.
anyways.
Mm-hmm.
And even though he beats that visage, he failed. Yoda says, remember your failure at the cave. um when he faces off against his father in Return of the Jedi, he doesn't become a Jedi until he throws down his weapon, and says, I'm a Jedi like my father. It's not the fighting him, it's not beating him, it was throwing down the weapon. When he went to Ben sleeping, in order to check on him, I feel like that was the same test. He shouldn't have. If I mean, things would have ended up different if he didn't bring his weapon. But this last time that they meet, he meets Kylo Ren exactly like he should have the entire time, at peace, passive, with non-violence. He doesn't bring a weapon. He doesn't even bring himself.
Mm, yeah. He gets another shot at it. What's so interesting about the the original Kylo Ben incident is it makes me think that there's no clear record. There's no one exact way that anything in history went down, really, because it's
Mm-hmm.
all interpreted through the storyteller's perspective. And some will say, oh, but what are just the facts? And the thing is, like, unless you're just taking literal timestamps of how many degrees people moved, like, there are no facts when it comes to motivations and the emotions and whatever was happening and whatever all the information that they had and all the information they didn't have but that was subconsciously affecting them. There's no such thing. And I think what the movie was trying to do by showing the three different versions of the incident was emphasize that. I think what ended up happening though was that people picked which one they liked best, which one justified their argument
Suited
best.
there, yeah.
Yeah. Because what I take from that is like there none of those three things are what happened, but they're also all of them what happened because they're all just subjectively felt through, you know, maybe Ben really did feel like, oh my gosh, my uncle's attacking me. Maybe so that could be true. And then
And that's
that
actually
doesn't,
something that Ryan Johnson did come out and say is that, 'cause, again, we get the three versions. We do know the first version isn't what happened because there's a lot of stuff omitted in the first one, but the second and third ones honest um are honest tellings of it. One from Ben's perspective, what he thought was happening, and Ryan Johnson did come out and say that he believes that Ben believes that this is what was happening in that moment. And obviously Luke tells us, um, I do follow Luke's version because he had more context in it, but it doesn't necessarily mean that I feel like unreliable narration is a through line throughout all of Star Wars and pretty important to the story. But yeah, I mean, I loved how it is kind of a unstoppable force versus an immovable object. Of if you look into his mind and you see the words say the death and destruction of everyone and everything I love. We've already seen Luke react to a vision of Han and Leia dying. He just ran off instantly without thinking, without finishing his training, just half cocked, and he got his butt kicked because of it. This, he sees that, but worse. Everyone and everything. Like, I think of The Mandalorian, where he picks up little baby Grogu at the end and looks at Din and says, "I will protect him with my life." If it's everyone and everything, but he saw little Grogu dying. He saw, you know what I mean? Like, that's powerful imagery. And I think it's interesting because, like, where does your duty as a Jedi to protect the galaxy, but your duty as a person who loves his family, where does one begin and one end? You know?
That's a great point. And I think when Leia gives up on her son in this film, that and everyone denouncing him and Luke having to consider these choices, it actually makes me feel like that is more of the Jedi way to be a it actually is, if you really consider all that we have been taught about the Jedi and what they value and how they feel about attachments, overpowering duty, and, things like that. Like, it actually, from a certain point of view, it would be selfish of Luke to preserve his family member on behalf, because he loves his nephew, just then to sacrifice like all that they've worked for and the lives of so many more people. So, yeah, in all of these renouncements of Kylo and all of these ways that people are so like turning against him, so to speak, there's a reason for that. And prequel era Jedi would say that's the correct reason. That's the correct. He would have been applauded. He would have been put on the Jedi Council for that.
Yeah, it's and that's one of the things I love about this film as well, is because it's the only one that really addresses the prequels in a profound way. When he's like, if you look at the legacy of the Jedi, like he recreated the Jedi, and then he ran smack dab into the same problem they did, and he's like, maybe the Jedi are causing more harm than good. Maybe the Jedi need to end.
Yes, I loved that. That was like one of my favorite parts of watching the movie. I was like, yes, finally, finally, we're doing this. And I think to go back to Leia, I think I just want to say that I think she's like a very underrated like force. I think she's a very underrated Jedi, or whatever you want to call her, force sensitive, someone living in the Jedi legacy in some way. Because she is someone who just has to say good. She has said goodbye to so many attachments. Like, she's had to say goodbye to so many people. She's lost everyone, like nearly
Multiple
everyone,
times.
and does it without like the drama of so many of these other characters, so many of these like other protagonists. Like, even just considering when she's saying goodbye to like her best friend, Holdo, she doesn't like really fight with her. She's just like, may the force be with you. Like, she knows that that's what needs to happen. And she is like so clear headed about where everything stands and, not letting her attachments, she just says, I understand my son, he's gone. She understands. So yeah, just shout out to Leia there.
Yeah. I mean, you saying that just makes me think of A New Hope, where she's comforting Luke after
Yeah.
Ben dies, and you're like, didn't your planet, like, every person you have known and every place you grew up and all of your possessions,
Yeah.
just gone now? Okay. Also, you were just tortured. Like, a few minutes ago
Yeah.
and imprisoned.
Leia is the rock of Star Wars.
It's like, but I'm really sorry you missed the space wizard that you knew for like the past 4 hours. That's
Right.
cool.
Yeah.
um, Also, if anyone hasn't read Bloodline by Claudia Gray, or Leia Princess of Alderaan, also by Claudia Gray, please do. Leia kicks butt, and she's the best.
She really does. Also, I would say read the Last Jedi novelization because we actually do get to a lot more of Leia's point of view, including we get inside of Leia's head while she's doing the Leia Poppins maneuver. So, for people who have a bunch of questions about her motivations there and what's going on, check out that book.
Yeah.
She's a very powerful character, put it that way. Very, very cool. Let's see. What else did I have to say? Did you have anything else to say about the music or sound? Do you have any favorite like sounds in this movie in general?
Um, I mean, the whole maneuver sound design was incredible. The sound design on this movie, just in general, is um incredible. I know that's not music; it's more sound. But
No,
like
that's we talk about that too. It's all good.
whenever they would have their force connection, and then the sound just gets sucked out of the room, and it feels like hollow and ambient. Um, yeah, but we also didn't quite mention the part where Luke
Oh
actually
my gosh,
dies.
you're right.
Uh, and how everyone is kind of like, well, not everyone, but Leia and Rey notice it, and we have it slowly goes up into the Force theme, but it's what a send off. I don't know. I think on his own terms, powerful, just like
Legacy,
a true
like
Jedi.
inspiration. I couldn't have it. I couldn't have asked for a better ending for him personally. How do you feel?
I would have been disappointed if like Kylo Ren struck him down or something like that. You know what I mean? Like
Me too.
he of anyone, I because I thought about this before ever watching it, and it was like I don't want Kylo Ren to beat him. I could see a situation like if he's fighting Snoke and then they both die, but that still is not what I
Ugh.
want.
Oh God.
That's not.
Uh,
But this is him, full power, full Jedi, rekindling the hope for the entire galaxy, just like the first time his name is mentioned and raised, like Luke Skywalker, he's real, like that hope that he's spread throughout it, him spreading that back through the galaxy once again is just beautiful. And then the imagery is wonderful. Yeah, I'm all for it.
Absolutely. And I think his actions here reverberate throughout the galaxy probably more than if he had survived. Like, this was such a dramatic action and with such big consequences for the First Order that it, I mean, you see like the broom boy, like you see the stable kids at the
Yeah.
end, talking about it. And the legend of Luke Skywalker is it's not the man, we've already made that sort of, or Ray's already made that mistake. Like, yes, he is a man, but also Ray, I think, I think Luke also comes around on the opposite end where he's like, he has now shown Ray that he's just a man, but through Ray and what they've allowed him to do and the way that Luke has stepped up, Luke realizes, okay, I am a man, yes, but also, okay, yeah, I am sort of a legend, and that stuff matters too. So they both have this sort of mini arc where one of them learns more about the other, and brings him Luke more down to earth or whatever the planet is,
Yeah.
and Luke sort of steps back into his bigger shoes that he was shying away from for the years that he was on Octo. So he's ready to like get back to that.
Yeah, and it makes me think two things, like of perspective for one, because for anyone watching, yeah, Luke just tanked a bunch of blasts from the Walker. Like no one else knows what happened. No one other than Ben can really comprehend what happened, and it makes me wonder how many of the other stuff that we see throughout Star Wars and Clone Wars and all this, where we are on the ground with the Jedi and seeing the stuff that they're doing, but there's people who are at home reading about this in their space newspapers. I don't know,
Yeah.
but how do they perceive
HoloNet.
these events unfolding? I think that's an interesting thought too. But I also love how this lesson that we learn about legends being humans spreads into the next movie, where people have all these expectations on Rey because she is the new hope. They saw this, and she's beginning her legend, lifting the rocks. And then she's like, people keep saying that they know me. They don't. Like, I am not the legend that you guys are expecting. And we get to see kind of the opposite of what Luke's journey just was.
I think Luke being this way in this movie sort of gave Ray permission to see that more in herself. You know, I mean, I know that I feel that way. Like if someone sort of shows me their humanity, it sort of makes me feel like, okay, yeah, that's right. I don't have to like be someone that I think other people want me to be. Like, okay, yes. Like it sort of it makes me also as a viewer like feel better that Luke is, I don't know, a human.
Yeah, makes me feel better as well, especially if, I've had my own times where I thought my trajectory lied along a path and it didn't end up going that way. Um,
Oh my god! And you know what doesn't make it feel? You know what doesn't make that any better? When people are like, "Chrysanthi would never do that." They would never do something as awful as that. And meanwhile, like I'm sitting in my humanity of like, no, I did do that. I did do that awful thing. But now no one knows. But now, I mean, okay, I guess there's a different expectation. That makes me feel sad for Luke. Hearing sort of some of the commentary of how he
yeah,
would never do that and how that's not his hero, and I'm like, but that is my hero because now I know that I I can be more like Luke now. Like I feel more empowered that I can do great things because I know that he's also not perfect. Like I haven't just ruined my chances of being Luke basically. As a kid, I didn't like identify with Luke. Of course I loved him as a character, but I didn't really identify with any of the Jedi because I was like all of those people are like way steps above me. I'm not like that.
I always identified with Plo Koon, but that's because we didn't get a whole lot of Plo Koon. He was just really chill, But yeah, I agree, and there's this kind of idea that like, oh no, if he passed this test, then he would never be tempted by it again, and you're like, that's not how that works. Like overcoming fear or failure doesn't mean you don't ever have fear or failure again. It means you're better at overcoming it when it happens, which he did. But we also have Anakin who fell after becoming a knight, and Dooku, like a lot. I don't know, it's common, but
Yeah.
I yeah, this is for sure my Luke. I love that we got that story, and it makes me feel like even at your lowest point, you can still rise up and make a difference, which is exactly what the resistance does.
Yes. It's so powerful. I love it so much, and I'm glad that you do too, because it made it for a fun conversation. Do you have
Yes.
anything else to add about the music or sound from either these minutes or The Last Jedi?
No, just I love it all.
What's your relationship to the music in general? Do you tend to listen to soundtracks? Were you into any of them as a kid? Were you into any of the themes as a kid?
I mean, the on a daily, semi daily basis, the asteroid theme from Empire just plays in my head. I like I'm driving my car and I'm like have to get over a lane and I'm hearing the do 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 do, and I'm like, yeah, yeah. But no, I'm a musician myself. I'm
What do you
not.
play?
So I have been a percussionist for ever, for as long as I can remember. But growing up, I was always in bands and stuff, and like playing performances around all throughout like Northern California and stuff. And so I ended up picking up guitar and bass and a little bit of piano. Um, I like to say I am an entertaining singer, not a talented one. But if you put on a show, people seem to care less. But no, I've always music has been in my family's DNA forever, And while I can't always articulate it or recreate it on your scale, I've just always appreciated it and how it, like, especially with the Star Wars and how everything else was kind of doing, synth type themes of like imagining a future, and this went back into this classical theme that has just stood the test of time. I mean, I feel like, yeah, this is the music of the franchise has probably done as much as George Lucas himself.
I echo that. Yeah. I obviously I have such a love for it. It's pretty incredible, and I'm
Can I ask your favorite theme?
Yeah. So I actually love the Force theme. Very Binary Sunset. I mean,
Yeah.
it's everywhere, but I think it's such a. I mean, yeah, I don't even need to justify it. There's no like amount of music theory knowledge dropping that justifies why you just love something. I just love it. I think it's just spectacular. I just love it.
Yeah.
Other than that, I think Leia has really gorgeous themes. Yeah.
And I was shocked by how much Ray's theme like hit me immediately as well. I love her theme as well.
Me too. And John Williams loves Daisy Ridley, so
Yeah.
he wrote her some good ones. Well, the motifs to go over, the motifs present in these 5 minutes were the Force theme. There was also the incidental motif of Rey lifting the rocks. And then there was Kylo Ren's aggressive theme. On the soundtrack, if you're following along, we're on The Last Jedi. The track is called The Last Jedi. And I think we're also at the beginning of Peace and Purpose. That's all I have for today. Darth Choco, where can people find you online?
Yeah, so I started out on TikTok mostly. I'm at Darth Choco, but I've been making a lot more YouTube content as well. I'm currently going through all of the shorts that were announced for Star Wars Visions. So I have videos on the first 3.
Wait, have they come out already?
No, they haven't come out, but it feels like a lot of people just watched the trailer that from StarWars.com. But if you were watching the actual panel that happened at Anime Expo Online, we got some more details. So I'm kind of going into the details that we got there. But yeah, on YouTube, I am Darth Choco as well, and Darth Choco 7 on Twitter. But I don't know how to use Twitter, so.
Cool. Well, I'll put all your links in the description, and I think you also have a podcast.
Oh yes, I'm sorry. The High Ground podcast is on. It's we actually do it live on YouTube every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Pacific time. And I would love to have you on at some point in the future.
Anytime.
And then and I take the audio and I put it up, and so it's available everywhere else. So yeah, the High Ground podcast.
Awesome. So check that out. All the links will be in the description. And if you're watching this on YouTube, you can also listen to the audio version on all the podcasting platforms, and vice versa if you're listening on podcast platforms and want to see our beautiful faces. Thank you so much. We're almost at the end of the film now. If anything in particular resonated with you, you can email me or leave a comment or find me on Twitter. I'm at Star Wars Museman or at Chrysanthi Tan. On YouTube, it's just at Star Wars Music Minute. On Instagram, which I will post on there one day. I'd post on my personal one, Chrysanthi Tan. But there also is a Star Wars Music Minute. 2 first posts to come soon, I hope. I don't know. We'll see. And also, if you are into the Bad Batch or some other video stuff on YouTube, I do Bad Batch music and sound commentary with my friends Justin and James. That's about it. Thank you so much for listening and sharing the show, and I'll see you next week on Star Wars Music Minute.